Okay. Jordan, did you want to ask the first question, or
Yeah.
I can?
I can start.
Okay.
So our first question is, how did your family get involved with the Morgan breed?
My mother showed dogs. Ling and I were raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My sister was born in 62, was born in 68. And so we grew up in the 70s in New Mexico, and my mother had show dogs. And my sister wanted to take riding lessons, and we found a local barn. And eventually we made it up to Espanola, New Mexico, where Debbie Honstein and Royal Morgan Farm is. She wrote equitation up there. And I was the younger sister that just followed along. And Ling ended up riding and winning gold medals in equitation with Tim O'Gorman and Debbie Honstein. And eventually we made it to Kohler because our mothers became friends at the Circle J Horse Show in Colorado when it was in Estes Park. And it's just gone from there. And we bought the farm in 1999. And so we had brood mares off and on before then, but after we bought the farm, we built a barn that my father designed, and we had some brood mares. We had a HVK Hotspur at that time from our time at Kohler Stables and at Cedar Creek. I showed him out of Cedar Creek too. And so he bred a few mares, and we had I Will Command daughters also through our association with Cedar Creek and Larry Bolin and Bob Berger. You know, the rest is history. I mean, it's just chapters in our life.
And now, what kind of things do you normally consider when you decide a cross?
Well, I think I naturally gravitate to horses, mares that have a lot of go. I think our trainers throughout the years have said, they might have too much go. But my sister and I like to say easy and whoa as opposed to cluck. I think our Morgan breed is smart, and in general, they have a lot of go. And I think with the breeding, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to be a broodmare manager. Oh, I'm going to help manage the show horses. It was an evolution through different times in my life at different barns. And our parents raised us to, I think this was indirect, to critique and try to improve whatever we do without too much pressure. And I think that's inherent in what I do with the breeding. I critique generations, and I think the mares that have a lot of go, it's easier to find a stud to balance that out. You know, a broodmare line, a strong broodmare line for generations. You can have one good broodmare, and her fillies will prove her over and over. I have found. And it's, I think you have to fall in love with certain bloodlines and pedigrees. If you're going to decide to breed, it isn't something that is mathematical, and you can't be too analytical. It's a combination of nature, nurture, with how they're raised, and also art. And you just have to, the horse tells you what it's going to do. And I think it's important to think that way. So you can broaden, because our Morgan horses are so diverse. They can do anything, truly. They're smart, have a great personality, and more importantly, they like people. They're people horses. We've had recipient mares that are beautiful, different breeds, and they just do not gravitate to people like the Morgan horse does. And I think it's so strong in our Morgan lines. And I like smart horses, so.
And then kind of going off of that, how important is temperament when deciding your mares or stallions?
Um, it's important because I have found through all these years of doing it that if you have a mare, like for instance, Dragonsmeade Valkyrie, she's out of an RER Vixenaire mare whom I adored that I showed during our years at Cedar Creek. And she was by Noble Flair's full brother, Aristocratic Heir, and out of just Serenity lines that were so strong. And her daughter, Valkyrie, just has been one of our wonderful, wonderful brood mares in that she has had colts and fillies that have gone on and done something. And you know what? Pasture pets are wonderful too. We have had plenty of those. But when you have a strong, hot dam line, you can find a stud that can balance them out. And that's what we did with breeding RER Vixenaire to Hotspur. Hotspur, Vision March out of HVK Belleek. And lo and behold, HVK Belflare. You know, so Belflare, people forget about Hotspur being back there, but he is in that dam line, and he was so kind and so smart and so level-headed. It balances out. At least you hope it does. But when you have a cross like that, we had Dragonsmeade Anthracite, who is now showing in junior exhibitor. He was so hot when he was a foal and so hot when he went into training. Andrew Byler eventually got him and worked him and worked him and worked him. And now he's a junior exhibitor. He can horse and he's safe and competitive. And you want that. You want a horse that is a show horse, but is safe and smart and pretty. And you hope to get balance. And that's what I think I do. I try to find sane horses, and luckily we have very sane horses that in our Morgan breed. And finding that balance where they can do anything, whatever they're bred to do, because you can breed full brother, who is a world champion park horse, to a world champion mare, and you think you'll get a world champion. Well, maybe they will be, but in genetics and in raising that foal, you just have to, it's like making bread. You have to knead it and raise it well and be patient. And that horse will do anything that you can, and that you hope it will do. And I think that's what's happened in all the many years that I've been doing this, and my sister's been doing this. She loves showing, and I love breeding. I like to show too, but I love the breeding, and I do love to ride and drive. There's nothing like feeling that feeling.
That's awesome. And then did you have a favorite cross that you guys have done in the past?
You know, I've been asked this before, I can't pick one favorite cross. I have favorite moments and favorite times of riding. You know, I love, of course, Icon. I love his full sisters, Obsidian. We've been so lucky to have HVK Obsidian. and she has had, you know, Icon and Axios for us. And lo and behold, they've been wonderful breeding stallions. I love Beethoven. He, you know, he was so exceedingly beautiful and smooth, and a horse bred way ahead of his time. And several of his daughters have gone on and been excellent broodmares. And he was one that could be bred to a variety of bloodlines. And you always got a beautiful quality horse. I love Donatella, who is Mizrahi's full sister. We are lucky to have had 2 daughters out of her. And she had some phenomenal geldings and colts that have been multi-world champions. And, you know, they're gorgeous. But I, of course, having those mares, those fillies out of Donatella, that Scaparelli line is so strong. And one of the daughters, the youngest full daughter, we sold at the Superior sale last year. And it was one of the most difficult decisions to put her in the sale. However, she looked almost identical to her older full sister, and I just didn't want to be greedy. And so we don't sell off the farm in general, and brood mares. And so this was a chance for her to go on and do something for other people, whoever was lucky enough to get her. And I think in turn, and she'll do that for them.
That's very cool. Do you have a particular division in mind when you're deciding crosses, or do you just look to get solid confirmation and then have it all fall in place?
You know, again, I've been asked that before. I think breeders are in general. I think you get in trouble when you breed and you think, I want to breed for this division. Because the horse will tell you what it's going to do. You can have a beautiful foal that looks like it'll be a world champion in-hand horse, and lo and behold, it'll be a world champion Western horse, or it could be a trail horse or a horse to stay at home. And I think we have to be flexible when you breed, and find that spot for that foal. And if you sell that foal, then those people can find that spot for that foal, that division. I think you get into trouble when you have a division in mind, or a color. I think color breeding can be a mistake. I mean, it's wonderful to have a variety of colors or only black, but genetics will win. And then when you have that foal, you have to decide what that foal can do. As a person that is responsible, a responsible breeder, you have to take care of that foal and figure out what track that foal can go on and be safe, and have a good life.
That makes sense. Do you have any tips for those who might want to start their own program with breeding?
I think, again, find a mare. I would say find a mare that you may not even know the pedigree. If you find a mare that you think is beautiful to you, I mean, they have to capture you in order to have that enthusiasm to breed. Because breeding is not for the faint of heart. You have to be patient. You have to find a good vet that will spend your money wisely, and do your research. And I think surround yourself with people that you can discuss. You don't need to surround yourself with people that are only what you believe in. I think you have to critique and learn, and do research. But one good mare can bring so much. You can find a variety of studs that you can cross to. And we have so many auctions now that people have a chance to breed to their favorite stud, and wait 11 months after you find a good vet and figure out what to do. And but you have to be patient. And then you also have to be patient when that foal is born, and take care of it. Be responsible.
And then what does a typical breeding season look like for you guys?
Well, usually at Oklahoma, I'll have a pretty good list of mares that I love, daughters that we haven't crossed, and then I cross them off. And it's a big list and it gets condensed. I think when we first started the farm and breeding, we had anywhere from 6 to 8. The most we had were 17, and we'll never do that again. But I think we had the farm maybe 3 years, and we bought some mares and foal to build our broodmare program. And it's again, you have to be responsible, and each foal you have to take care of. And so anywhere to 68 foals. And then when I'm in Oklahoma during quiet times, which doesn't seem to happen very often in Oklahoma, but sitting there, I will see a horse that I've read about and haven't seen, and research while I'm sitting in the stands, and look on our website, which is phenomenal. We're so lucky to have that. And our fabulous Erica, we're so lucky to have her. And I do research. And it's just always fun to see the pedigrees and see that foal, see that 2-year-old show. And I'm not talking about ours, I'm talking about everybody else's. It's a lot of fun. And that's when I scratch off. And come November, it's sitting there, and we breed. Of course, this last year I was so excited to breed. Jan, our broodmare manager, who's amazing, we're so lucky to have her. She said, "Ian, you'll be having foals in December." I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll slow down." So, it's exciting time. Breeding season and foaling season is exciting. This time is exciting too, when you're figuring out where your tweeners are going to go, and what they're going to do. But I love making lists. And sometimes I'll be making a list and the mare's been there, and then I'll look and she's 12 years old and hasn't been bred yet. So.
And then expanding on that, after a mare is confirmed that she's pregnant, what does the journey look like from there in terms of like vet visits and stuff like that?
Well, we do the checks and make sure you're in full, but we don't over ultrasound or anything. We make sure we have a good heartbeat. Our mares are vaccinated regularly. We make sure everyone's cultured clean before they are bred. And you know what? I think you also have to, when you have an open mare, we also culture, and they're going to stay open. You just need to make sure during the winter they're clean too. And then you culture again, just to make sure they're clean. You breed with a stallion with good semen, a vet who knows what he or she is doing with fresh cooled, and or frozen. I think you have to be very careful. I think some people ultrasound palpate too much in general because you get nervous. We've always just followed the vet's lead. When we first had the farm, Dr. Steve Conboy, who was at Castleton, we were lucky to have him take care of our mares and had been for years prior to at Saraland. And so we knew him, and just a nice guy. And he was old school. He could palpate and tell there was a pregnancy, and we would ultrasound one time. I have found the younger vets use that ultrasound machine a lot. And I think as a breeder, you just have to be careful because that's expensive, and keep your expenses down. We also, since we're so lucky to be in Kentucky, when Axios and Icon both started breeding, it seemed Axios had a couple years ahead of time because he needed to have some stall rest when we moved the horses out to the Midwest. And so he bred a lot more mares, but it seemed he had more fillies. And it was interesting to me. And in Kentucky, we were lucky with Dr. Rude from Rude and Riddle. He knows how to sex foals. The thoroughbred industry learned to do it because the Japanese in general, racing industry, they would check to see who was a filly or a colt, and they would send to Japan and then keep either the colts or the fillies in Kentucky to be raised, and then ship the rest to Japan or Asia or to Europe. And it was nice, and it was $135, and it hasn't changed. But I could track what the boys sired, Icon and Axios. And it was interesting to see. And Dr. Rude was 100%. And he just retired this year. So he never missed with that sexing. And I love that. And then of course, right before we do use foal alerts. I just think it's better and healthier for the people that are watching because it's exhausting. And Ling and I have been very lucky, and our parents too, when we spent time at the farm together, to see many, many foals born. And that's magical to see that. And then of course the foals are vaccinated, and the minute they're born, and they also get the enema, and we also give them plasma, whether they need it or not. I think it just is I think it just gives all the foals a head start. And that's per our vet suggestion through the years. Always follow your vets. They know, but then you can balance them out too when you have to pay attention to the cost.
That was super cool to hear about. Changing the subject a little bit, do you have a favorite horse that you have bred, and if so, why?
Again, it's difficult. I love all of them. Ling and I love all of them differently. Again, I go back to the chapters in our lives. When we first got the farm, Dragonsmeade Bulgari was the very first foal that we had when we had the farm, and Dragonsmeade in Fusion was the second foal. And so we were very lucky with those two. They just, I love them. And of course, I love Icon and Axios, those two boys. Obsidian is so special. We bought her during our time at Black Ridge and Rocker Stables out here in California. Sandy Hendrick rode and owned her. Sherry Bartolucci bought her from Kohler, and then the Hendricks bought her, and we were lucky enough to be able to buy Obsidian. And she has such a long, pretty neck, and Ling is so tall that we just thought she'd be perfect for a show horse. And lo and behold, she's a wonderful broodmare. But of course, looking at her pedigree, you know, we know her pedigree during our time at Kohler and with Mrs. Kohler, and Mr. Kohler was around too, but he was always working. You know, Twilight Vigil, all those beautiful Vigil March, you know, just it's sentimental. And, you know, having those mares like Obsidian, and then our years from Cedar Creek, another phenomenal breeding farm that bred amazing mares that had a lot of go, a lot of old Morgan lines with Trophy and In Command. Larry and Bob bred some phenomenal horses, and I love Fusion, and Infusion has a full sister, and all of her foals, you know, you think back to that time when you look at the pedigrees and you just think, oh, I remember that. And little things that just touch you. Again, it's what you feel emotionally, and I think you can get that when you buy a mare too, after you do research and look at pictures. You know, we're so lucky because we have so many pictures online, and you know, certain horses just touch you and you can go on with that one mare. I you know, I love Queen's Estelle. Diana Victoria is a mare that we were lucky enough to get from one of Tim Rosink's clients, Laura Lyons. And, you know, she's by Stage Rage and out of old Noble Flair lines that are so important. And Stage Rage has crossed so well with our mares, and having her in our broodmare band has been great. We just recently got Evening on Broadway. Memory Lane, Daisy Beisler had her and showed her, and we were very lucky to get her. She's had 2 fillies by Axios, and of course, I remember seeing Evening Episode Show, and those lines are getting very rare. And when you have a young mare that you can still breed, and they're still out there with those old lines, it's nice to mix the current studs with the old lines. And you're lucky to get in our Morgan breed. The quality is there. And also they're sane. They're just good horses.
This is going to be another hard question, so I'm sorry, but is there a most memorable part of your career?
Again, it's chapters. I think when I first showed And the Beat Goes On, you know, when we bought him, Bob and Rock were so honest and said, you know, he's probably not going to be a breeding stallion. He may be, you know, but he was such a good boy. He didn't need to be castrated. And, you know, I was able to show him and drive him, and he did so well. I think when we first won, it was amazing. When I first rode him, it was also very memorable because he was very loosey-goosey, and he didn't like it so much. I think watching our trainers through the years show horses, I've enjoyed as much as showing. Seeing Tim win with Icon in 20, I don't remember, it was mid 2000s. It was amazing. I will never forget that class because it was so competitive, and I loved it. Even back in the day when I showed in 1984 with Java's Charmer, I think we won. I don't remember, but showing in that ring the first time as a junior exhibitor and going through that chute, I'll never forget. And driving too, driving Dan City Gracious Remark, who is Vendome, and then Axios. I showed both of those, and you just you reminisce and you think about those times and those horses, and it's special.
Do you have a person who you look up to most in the horse or the Morgan world?
Oh, so many, so many through the years. Watching Judy Whitney when I was young, amazing. And lo and behold, to be having a conversation under lunch with Joan Laurie, who rode Wammunition. I am so lucky to have spent time with Linda Kohler and the Kohler family. They loved breeding. Mr. Kohler loved breeding. There are so many people that I look up to, and now I'm lucky enough to be on the Grand National Show Committee. Ling and I, through the years, and my mother have been on volunteer committees and with very dedicated people that give their time to the Morgan horse. Sherry Cole, Georgie Green, Bob Hughes, also talking with him, Rock Walker, Mike Carpenter from our years at Kohler, he's like my brother. We laughed, and he has the best sense of humor, and he knows the Morgan. If I could get he and Bob Hughes in one room and just listen, I would love it, because they know the Morgan bloodline. And they love, and they remember. Again, it's chapters that they remember and horses that they remember, and learning from them. I think when you are with people that have a passion, whether it's Morgan horse, anything, breeding, showing, training, just sitting back and listening is just wonderful. And we're all blessed to be able to do that. And Tim Rosink, it's interesting when he came into our lives, and Kim, he doesn't care about breeding. He's interested in the bloodlines. He likes the individual, and as an athlete, as a horse. And so learning from him has been wonderful too, because it's just different. I think our trainers know our horses better than anybody. And I think we need to learn about our horses by handling them when they're young, and then handling the brood mare, knowing how she reacts to things, just walking them out into the field, grooming them. You learn so much. And when you listen to people that have experience in anything, Western, trail, dressage. I know nothing about dressage. I would love to learn more. Jumping, I would love to learn more. It's fascinating. And the Western dressage, amazing. And I look up to people that can ride Western. I mean, Ling rides Western. I have never been able to do it. It makes me too nervous because it's too slow. And I think when we listen to anybody who rides in a different division, and watch and observe, you learn so much. And when you look up to people, there are so many. I can't just pick a few.
What kind of qualities do you like your stock to possess? I know you kind of answered this already, but
well, they have to have go. They really, and just confidence. There are some, and I think with stallions, I like a stallion that looks like a stallion. Doesn't act like a stallion, but looks like a stallion. There are some stallions that are amazing studs, but to me, they look like geldings. And and that's okay. Geldings are wonderful. I love geldings. But I think you have to find, I love stallions that are smooth in general, and more conformationally sound, I think. Because in large, we don't breed in hand horses. A lot of like, and the beat goes on. His croup was not the best. He wasn't completely flat, but boy, could he trot. Icon, many time world champion in hand. He didn't have the best croup, but he could trot and was the sanest horse, completely. And mares, I think, need to have more go, and stallions need to be more sane. That's what I look at in general when I think about what I look for. Griffin, Dragonsmeade Griffin, who's now a 2-year-old, crossed him to Standing Tall, a stage rage son, to Icon's older full sister, and younger. And the younger one has a daughter, and she's pretty, but she doesn't have the smoothness that the boys have had. But she'll be a good broodmare, I hope, because of that dam line. And Standing Tall, so gorgeous, so pretty when Mike showed him. And I just saw him in Oklahoma and I thought, so correct too. Contemporary Morgan, definitely. And I would say, the Icon full sisters, they're a little more typey. They look like Icon. They're more typey. And I think finding that blend of contemporary smooth, a little more length of neck to the typey, you can get something that's pretty cool. And we're lucky in our breed because the old lines that have a lot of foundation lines are in our contemporary Morgans, and you just get magic when you breed. We're very lucky.
Since you have multiple training barns as partners, how do you decide which horses to put where?
Again, it's I think you have to be flexible. I think not every trainer gets along with every horse. I'm not going to say a certain line. It could be the individual. Some horses just don't get along with a trainer, and some trainers just don't get along. And I think you have to find a trainer that is good with young stock, that is okay, patient to work with the young horses. That takes a lot of patience in order to line break them and then hook them. But of course, they have to get a tweener, as we call them, that has been handled, but not turned into a pet. I think it's important that they learn to cross tie, learn to be groomed, get their feet picked up. We've always believed in that. I think you give the trainer a chance to move forward faster when they don't have to tame a raucous teenager, because that's what they are. And when they're at the farm, I think even if you have one foal, I think it's important that that foal get to play and or be with its peers or another peer. Say you have one foal, what do I do? Oh, well, you have a network, get together, because I think developmentally, these horses they're herd animals. And I think they need to be with each other in order to learn out in the field. I think it's very important when they're foals and then coming yearlings. And they also tell you, I mean, we've had, 4 or 5 colts out there together until they're almost 2 and they're fine. But when you watch temperaments, you watch them out in the field as foals, some are more steady, you separate those. But as long as you can, they need to be together. And I think trainers, just do your research again. See who has started a quality young horse. And that's what we've been able to do just by default of where we've been. We've been very lucky. Lucky that Tim now, has been great starting young horses. Selvin Torres, Mike Carpenter started Balenciaga. She is a hot mare out of HVK Firefly by Mizrahi. And she's Princess Patty. That's what we've always called her. And he got her broke. And her daughters are just like her, but he loved her. He loved that torque. And he was younger then, he will say that. But the trainers have to be like that line and like that horse. And if it doesn't work, you have to move on. It's not personal. And I think people get worried sometimes about doing that. I think when we got And the Beat Goes On, that was something different for us to have a different barn while we still were showing at a Cedar Creek, and it worked. It's everybody understood, didn't take it personally. So it's a business, and you have to do what's best for the horse and the horse that you've bred and your farm. And trainers, they know that. And any trainer, even if they're not a professional trainer, anyone who is doing that, they should understand.
And then how do you get your horses ready to show at the Grand Nationals?
Well, that's a good question for the trainers. As an exhibitor and or breeder, Ling and I have always followed the lead of the trainers. And we have never had the inkling or desire to be trainers. If you decide to do that, great. But I think you have to learn from a professional. And Ling and I've been very lucky through the years to learn. And of course, have a dialogue about the horses, what they're going to show in, how many times you're going to show. Ling and I at this point don't want to ride a horse or drive a horse that's green broke, but we never have, maybe when we were teenagers. But I think you have to have a dialogue with your trainer and figure out where you want to show. And like, for instance, going to the Blue Ridge Classic, I was going to drive Synergy for the first time. Such a good boy. And I said, we've never seen, he said he's doing great in under saddle too. And I said, well, we've never seen him really ride. And he said, oh, okay, I'll ride him. So we got to see him ride. But now I'm not showing, which is okay. Ling and I wanted to see him ride under saddle, and that's all right. I haven't shown all year, which is interesting. I don't think it's happened recently, but that's okay. I may next year. Maybe I won't.
How does it feel knowing that many of your horses go on to win world championships?
Well, again, it's humbling. Ling and I can't remember the past. We don't remember who's won what. But I think it's humbling. And again, we think of the moments, not the titles really. And who knows what's going to happen in the future. Griffin, for instance, he won as a yearling. he may not win this year, and that's okay. I think you can't, of course, you want to do well, be competitive, but it may not be your year. And I think it isn't just Ling or me winning. I think it's everybody. It's the trainers, it's the grooms, it's the vet, it's the time spent. It's so much that goes into that. And I think people just need to enjoy the moments rather than the titles, and support each other. It's so nice to be in the audience and cheer for your friends and a horse that you love, and even people you don't know. Just support each other. We're so lucky after these last several years to be together and to be doing this. Seeing Tony Lee show. I love cheering for Tony. People that we've known, people that we've just met. I think you just have to think of the moments and the events and not the titles per se. I think that could be too stressful. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. That's horse showing and breeding. And if you don't breed a horse that's going to be a show horse, that horse can be a good pet and or raise a walk trotter. That's where those horses are gold, in my opinion, more than titles. Horses that raise little kids and that learn how to ride, they're golden. And I'm happy we breed those too. And it's wonderful when you find trainers that find places for those horses. Because to me, you can sell icon wannabes every day. But finding that perfect horse, safe horse for a kid, that's what I think is golden and what we all need to work on. And also between the show horse world and or the carriage world, I think we all need to network more in order to have every division be successful and cheer each other on again.
That's great advice. Is it difficult to sell your horses since you've known them since birth?
Yes.
And how do you decide which ones to sell and which ones to hold on to for longer?
Yes, it's horrible. It's horrible to do that. I mean, Ling and I do not like it. Our trainers know that the first answer will be no. And who is it? You just want to make sure they're okay and safe and go on and do something well and happily for people. Selling at the Superior sale was making that list was very difficult. One of the most difficult things to do. However, the Amish community through the years, they have been very serious breeders. They ask very serious questions and they want to buy, and we have said no through the years. And the Superior sale with their stallion auction has grown. And I mean, this class that will be happening is just awe-inspiring. It'll be so much fun to watch. But I think giving those mares, and we only put mares in, a chance to go on and be productive for other people, not necessarily Amish, but anybody could have bid and been the winning bidder, which happened for everybody who bought a phenomenal horse. And that sale is just awe-inspiring. And I think selling is awful. It's difficult. But when you see What's better is when you see your horses that you bred 10 years ago are out there teaching little kids and or walk trotters, lead line. That to me is just, Ling and I love that, to watch and to see it. So that makes the decision of selling that horse not as difficult. That makes it worth it. And you want success, continued success. And luckily with our online, I watch that instead of streaming. I go on to our online site, and that has improved, and it's phenomenal. And you can go back so many generations, and you can track where your horses are. We have Robert E. Lee, whom Tony Lee bred, and he's still doing great. He's out here in California as a pet for our daughter Andrea, and she loves him. And you can keep track of them and make sure they're okay. And so that also makes it worth it. And supporting those rescue, and also putting them in circles so you guys, everyone can watch over and just make sure they're okay. It's very important. That makes it okay when you sell. But our trainers are very used to us saying no and getting teary because we get emotional in our middle age now.
Is there anything else you would like anyone to know?
Well, I think anytime you see Ling and me at a show, we're usually running around like crazy people. And if you want to stop and visit, stop us and visit. We will visit with you anytime.
And then if anybody has any questions, you can ask them now, put them in the chat or unmute yourself.
I have a quick question. What would you, or I guess, where would you suggest people go to learn more about the history of Morgan bloodlines? I feel like the only place you can go is like talking to other people about it, but is there anywhere else you would suggest? Like, I feel like you just have to know the right people.
That is true. And luckily with email, you can email anyone. I think, again, go online and you can find anybody on the website. And if there's a certain bloodline that you like, you can find that person. Sometimes they'll answer you back, sometimes they won't. But you can email them and ask them anything. I think anyone who has bred a horse took that dedication and time and expense to do that. And start online, start with our website and go there. You can email Stephen Kenny, who is a wealth of information. Email Kim Oplotnik, any of us, anyone, and they will answer you back. I think, again, it's doing research and going back there. Erica, shoot her an email. If someone, she may know, and you can ask any questions. There's never a dumb question, ever.
Allison in the chat said, is there a favorite class that you like to watch?
Oh, well, some people that don't know me might find this surprising, but I love watching a hunt class. I love hunt. It is, I've been lucky enough to show 1 year, I believe, Uninhibited, whom I adore, and she's now a broodmare for Dennis Bontrager. He's so lucky. But she was the best first hunt horse because she's so sane, and those horses are so beautiful. so elegant, and those classes are huge. I love watching that. I love all the young classes. It doesn't matter, in hand, saddle, driving. I love all the youngster classes. It makes me sad that the in hand, that's why I support your futurity classes. It is so important, because that promotes any breeding, 1 horse breeder to 12 horse breeder. It supports it, and seeing those classes be so small, that's very scary to me. But I think, we're so lucky. We can see beautiful horses in any division. At Oklahoma, New England, any of our shows, I love watching a great class. What I don't like watching are small classes, with sessions that run 4 hours. I think, and our committees, those volunteers, that have spent hours and hours and so much time, putting together shows, just need to pay attention and learn about the scheduling. I mean, of course, at Oklahoma, that's a beast. But it's Oklahoma, New England, but I think seeing a lot of these shows that have 1 and 2 horse classes, I don't enjoy that. I don't think it's in a participation ribbon. Everyone gets a ribbon. I think to have a competitive class, that is much more exciting and worth winning and watching. It's so much fun to watch a competitive class, any class, Western, hunt, trail. The Western dressage, amazing when I first saw that.
If anybody else has any questions, we can answer them. If not, thank you so much for joining us. We really enjoyed hearing about all your breeding experience.
Thank you. It's nice to see all of you, and I appreciate your very thoughtful, thorough questions. It was nice to go on memory lane with you guys.
Thank you so much again.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.